In this topic, we'll turn your Azure HSM implementation into something auditors can actually understand and trust. You'll learn how to translate architecture, controls, logs, and operations into clear evidence, structured documentation, and a defensible risk story for your organization. You've already done the hard work. You understand HSM concepts, you can design Azure HSM architectures, and you know how to run them securely with strong logging and governance. Now we'll convert that technical reality into concise, defensible audit evidence that lines up with major regulatory and security frameworks. Think of audit readiness as preparing a case file, not a slide deck. Every statement about your Azure HSM should be backed by organized current evidence. You need proof that controls are designed correctly, operate consistently, and are tied to owners, risks, and exceptions. Configuration screenshots, policies, logs, and test results must tell the same story. Keys are protected, governed, monitored, and recoverable according to policy. Your role is to turn technical reality into business-readable assurance. Treat the audit documentation package as a self-contained narrative of your HSM environment. Open with architecture and data flows so reviewers see every trust boundary and integration. Then walk through the full key lifecycle: how keys are created or imported, rotated, expired, and securely removed or recovered. Next, explain who can do what, how approvals work, and where duties are separated. Close with backup, restore, monitoring, incident response, and attach real evidence samples. Architecture diagrams tell the story of how keys are actually used. Start by clearly showing which Azure HSM option you rely on, because that drives shared responsibility. Then map every workload, identity, and network path that touches those keys, including private endpoints and any internet exposure. Explicitly label what Azure secures, what you secure, and where partners plug in. Finally, trace high-risk paths like admin access and key operations, and show where logs land for monitoring. Data flow diagrams explain who talks to the HSM, what they ask it to do, and where sensitive data travels. Focus on the crypto operations: encrypt, decrypt, sign, verify, wrap, and unwrap. The key idea is that applications send requests, but key material itself should remain non-exportable inside the HSM whenever possible. By marking trust boundaries, identity tokens, and logging paths, these diagrams help auditors spot any point where keys or plain text could be exposed. A key lifecycle policy answers a simple question: can you prove every key is controlled from birth to death? It starts with standards: which key types and algorithms are allowed, what sizes, and what operations each key may perform. Then it defines who can request and approve keys, how they're generated or imported, how often they're rotated, what triggers emergency rotation, and how keys are disabled, deleted, recovered, and evidenced. For auditors, the next question is, who can perform sensitive actions on the HSM, and how is that controlled? You need a clear mapping from personas to permissions like create, rotate, delete keys, view logs, and manage access. Show how Azure permissions, local RBAC, and privileged workflows restrict powerful rights. Use just-in-time elevation, enforce approvals, and log everything. Then demonstrate that emergency break glass access is rare, time-bound, and always reviewed afterwards. Think of resilience as a repeatable loop. First, define what's backed up, how often, where it's stored, how it's encrypted, and who can access it, including retention rules. Next, run backups and protect them with deletion safeguards like soft delete, purge protection, and dual approval. Then, test restores, validate data integrity, and measure performance against your RTO and RPO. Finally, capture evidence, test results, and remediation, so auditors see a working process, not promises. A monitoring plan turns raw HSM logs into proof that controls are really working. Start by streaming logs from Azure Monitor, Managed, or Dedicated HSM, and any SIM into a central view. Track key events, key creation, deletion, rotation, backup and restore, permission or policy changes, and failed access. Then define alerts, escalation paths, and retention, So those events trigger investigations, tickets, dashboards, and sign-offs auditors can rely on. For HSMs, incident response means being crystal clear on who does what when for key related problems. Begin by defining concrete scenarios: unauthorized access, odd key usage, failed restores, or accidental deletion. Then map each step to specific roles across security, cloud operations, key and application owners, and compliance. Predefine containment moves like disabling access and rotating keys, and show readiness with tabletop exercises, incident tickets, and post-incident reviews. Auditors will first map responsibility and boundaries. Be ready to name the business owner, the technical custodians, and the control owner for each key. Then clearly describe export rules. Are keys non-exportable, only wrapped for transfer, or sometimes in software? Next, show exactly where key material lives and whether plaintext ever leaves the HSM. Finally, walk through who can request, approve, and document key creation and use, with references to policies and evidence. Once they know where keys live and who owns them, auditors zoom in on control and visibility. They'll ask who can administer keys, what activity is logged, how rotations are enforced, and how deletion and recovery work. Your job is to link each question to clear intent, specific evidence, and a named owner who can walk them through it. Your risk checklist for HSMs should always start with design. Look for excessive privileges, weak isolation, missing logs, poor recovery testing, and fuzzy key ownership. Then ask, after current controls, what residual risks remain, like misconfiguration, regional lock-in, operational dependency, or human error. For those, define compensating controls and clear owners. Finally, assess governance maturity, policies, evidence, automation, review cadence, and whether leadership is actually accountable. Compliance with Azure HSM isn't just technology, it's documentation, evidence, and ownership. Capture architecture, key lifecycle, and recovery. Prove monitoring, logging, and incident response. Be prepared to answer who owns what, who can access what, and why risks are acceptable. In the next module, we'll compare Azure on-prem HSM and AWS in a capstone design.